Hi there. This is the tarot for December 2025, and I'm recording this on Thanksgiving weekend. So I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, whether it was quiet and peaceful or full of family, noise, football, holiday food, whatever. So a happy Thanksgiving. There's still so much happening in our world that it was, again, difficult to choose the questions. But one question had to do with I'll call it the sort of helpless, hopeless, helpless mindset that many people have slipped into. So, yeah, we need to fix that. Another question came from hearing people say that they are not going into further debt to buy presents for Christmas this year. So that got me thinking about the debt that our system is carrying. And that brought the second question. Then I had to ask about Three Eye Atlas. And that actually got a stunning message from the animal kingdom. Like, oh, wow. And then that answer or that response was backed up by the plant kingdom. So let's begin. Our questions are, number one, the people of the Western countries are floundering badly in many areas of life. What has happened to the spirit of the people and how do we restore it? Question number two, how long can we sustain our $37 trillion debt? And when will this change or collapse? And what is the one thing people most need to do to survive when this happens? Number three, what does the animal kingdom have to say about Three Eye Atlas and our ability to face the truth of a changing world? And then question number four was, what advice does the plant kingdom have for us this month? And the cards drawn are, for number one, the devil and the moon. The devil is number 15 in the major arcana, and that means it's a major issue. And the ace is like, whoa, okay. This is a powerful combination. The second pair, because the second question was actually a three-part question, but I drew the moon card and the Two of Cups. Very interesting. The third card was a wow. I drew the swan, number 39 in the animal medicine deck. Swan. And the last card was hibiscus, number 14 in the Herbal Astrology deck. Wow. The cards seem to be getting more direct and more powerful each month. So let's look at these more deeply. Number one, question number one. The people of the Western countries are floundering badly in many areas of life. What has happened to the spirit of the people? And how do we restore it? So I drew two cards here because it was a two-part question. And in my mind, I was thinking maybe I'd get a card indicating people were depressed, maybe worried about money, or fearful about coping with change, something. However, I was really shocked to see the devil card in answer to the question about what happened to the spirit of the people. And my instant thought when I saw this card was, oh, Satanism. This card, which depicts a half goat, half man figure with horns, big horns, hairy legs, bat wings, and clawed feet, is a blatant statement thrown out there that highlights a huge dilemma for humanity. It says our world has become saturated with the ideas and material desires of Satan. And that's not all. It warns that a threshold of taboos has been crossed in the dark, secretive practices of Satanism. And even though we were not directly aware that this was happening until recently, the intellectual and emotional energies of those practices, those satanic practices, have rubbed off on us, leaving us deeply unsatisfied with everything, and thus grasping for material solutions. This occurs because energies interact instantly, with or without your awareness. We are left either better off or worse off, depending on the energies that we are surrounded by. Like cottage cheese or vinegar, we have been fermenting in those dark energies for decades, and we're finally waking up. The devil is a card that announces something that was happening under the surface is now quite visible, and that is both an advantage and a challenge. It's good to see, but it's like, what do we do? So I'm reminded here of the activities of Jeffrey Epstein and the systematic trapping of everyone in power. We now know what was going on. So in some ways, it doesn't matter whether Epstein is alive or dead. It doesn't matter whether his list of clients is published or not, has been added to or redacted or not. What matters is that we know we are no longer naive. So now what? What is it we know? Well, we know that the entire set of presidents, prime ministers, and congresspeople of all but a few nations were completely compromised. We know that the entire structure of governance around planet Earth was compromised and corrupted, and because of this, people have been deprived of truth, justice, freedom, and spirit. Neglect of us and our wishes has evolved to persecution. And the devil card says bluntly, it's time to redress this. The downward pointing horns indicate a loss of civilized ways of living. And the triangular head, this big triangular head on the devil, warns of seriously negative energies that eventually pull everything down with them. Those hairy legs symbolize biases, prejudices, angers, and jealousies that bring anxiety and difficulty to the lives of anyone who does not awaken. They continue to struggle against something, but they don't recognize what's happening, so they can't fix it. The devil sits on a black cube that represents blind thirst for money and materialism. A naked man and a naked woman are chained to the cube, symbolizing our dependence on money, materialism, and an excessive need for sensual comforts. And we're not just talking about sexuality here when we use the word sensuality. We're also including things like big houses, expensive cars, movies, drugs, expensive clothing, fancy vacations, and assumptions that we should never be too hot, too cold, or bothered by insects and ignorant people who don't think like us. And in essence, that's a nutshell of what materialism is. The two humans each have a tail, representing how close they are to their animal natures and how far they are from the potential of being evolved humans. The devil holds a torch in his left hand, but he keeps it low in order to continue working like a vampire in the dark, meaning working without the people ever realizing what is going on. However, the task of the people is to take hold of the torch, shine a light on what is happening. In other words, we must force the devil to withdraw and reset our priorities, thus creating an opportunity for the spirit of humanity to rise again. The second part of the question was, well, how do we restore that spirit? And shining a light on what's happening is only step one in the process. The next step is to face or admit what is revealed, then consider all the ways it could be handled, and then take action that's both symbolic and literal. The card drawn here was the Ace of Pentacles, a very interesting card in response to the question of restoration of spirit. To begin with, pentacles represent the combination of physical nature and culture. The nature spoken of here is both Mother Nature and human nature, the human nature that each of us embodies. And humans then bring all of their talents and all of their shortcomings to the physical, material, financial world. And that's what creates culture. The cultures of everyday life. Within each culture, there are always tasks to be completed and new possibilities to be discovered. So since our question is, how do we restore the lost spirit of the people? The Ace of Pentacles says, well, first, you have to recognize that task is part of your fate. And then you have to use your gifts and talents. And you have to take a chance. So it says, get your talents rolling. Do what you must do. That's a quote. Get your talents rolling. Do what you must do. Then that gray sky, it calls for quiet and sort of detached but determined and very self-possessed approach. The hand emerging from the cloud tells us that we must take the opportunity when it comes, and that we are to think of the outcome as a gift we give to ourselves. In other words, the way we face, handle, and resolve the issues created by chasing only material things should result in a world that feels like a gift to us. We have to resolve the material chase. That will be the gift to ourselves. That gift should be the return of a can-do spirit, a spirit of freedom, a creative spirit ready to remake our lives and our world. And then we have to keep an eye on it so it doesn't get off track again. There's a garden of white lilies, and that garden represents beginnings and endings. And the lilies contribute to that. And this may refer to the end not only of satanic attitudes and practices, but the end of the oligarchs and elites that have turned every member of the population into an income stream and are now seeking to do the same to every tree, lake, and piece of property they can get their hands on. The hedgerow of roses and that arched gateway represent the border between this world and the world we would love to have. That gateway invites us to embark on a new stage in life, characterized by wisdom and the grace of experiences that have taught us what works, what doesn't work, and what we must pay attention to in order to maintain peace and security for all, men, women, and especially children. Key words for the devil are ravage, violence, dark force, fatality, weakness, pettiness, blindness, greed, burdensome, torment, deprivation, dilemma, devotion to materiality, and negative energy. The key words for the Ace of Pentacles are inspiration, borderland between worlds, prudence, work, sharp definition, strength, career change, new life, new documents related to business, and joining together. Question number 2 was, how long can we sustain our $37 trillion debt? When will this change or collapse? And what is the one thing people most need to do to survive when it happens? So there are 3 questions here, but I only drew 2 cards, with the moon being the first one regarding the $37 trillion of debt. For the other parts of the question, I decided I would draw only one more card, partly for its message, and then also to determine the timing, that the numbers on the cards would give a sense of when this change will happen. And so the two of cups was the second card drawn in response to the questions. When will this change? And what is the one thing American people need most to do to survive? So the moon is the symbol of hidden enemies, of danger, and of the inability to think rationally. There's a lot of that irrational stuff going on right now. Since our question is about how long we can sustain our $37 trillion debt, this card starts right out with a blunt warning that whoever orchestrated the debt was not our friend, and trying to sustain it has put us into real danger. The moon card is a card of crazily fluctuating emotions, and that may be true for both sides, those making the decisions about the debt and those who are affected by those decisions. That would be us. Neither of these messages is very comforting. Yet the moon brings several other pieces of advice that are both curious and intriguing. In surveying the big picture, we are aware that for millions of people, money is needed to buy their survival. If there's a sudden change in the money system, or it collapses under the weight of the debt, those who have seriously contemplated such a situation will be able to deal with it rationally to some extent. They will not tend to panic, and they will have some ability to see and think clearly as they navigate the changes. Since real changes are seriously needed, any change may leave those who are completely unprepared between a rock and a hard place. The rock will be the changes, and the hard place will be adjusting to those changes. When you look at this card, you see a half moon with a frown, a full moon, and a sun, all merged together in a sky decorated with droplets of gold falling to earth like money from above. At first glance, looks like a wonderful situation, and maybe it will be. But the frown tells us that something's missing, or not clear, or something's not adding up, or something's happening that we can't see. So when viewing the moon, we see only the front side of the moon, never the back side. And this tells us that there is something in this question about debt that we just can't see yet. The moon says there is an important fact or set of factors that remain hidden from view at the moment. And the advice is to sit, watch, and wait until things look different. Go about your business, wash your socks, plant your carrots, and stop worrying about the debt until new information comes forth. The moon is a symbol of drunken behavior. It warns that we have been inebriated. How so? We have been drunk with illusions of endless money, imagining that there was an endless flow of it, and then spending like drunken sailors. The moon card tells us that this must stop, because naive overindulgence creates karmic patterns. Those patterns trap us in an endless cycle of frustration and poverty. And we all know that it is difficult to free oneself from the pattern of poverty. So, although we can look back in time and you can see clear patterns of behavior and decision making that led to debt collapse in various, like older prior empires, we seem to be oblivious to the diagnosis of some analysts that the US is already in stage 5 of a 7-stage pattern of collapse. Maybe there are not enough people who see the pattern yet. And when you can't or won't see it, nothing can be done to avert the outcome. It may also be that it is just not in our hands to fix the situation. So, where are we going? What are our options? We will look at answers to that question in a moment, but first, let's look at the rest of what this card tells us. There are 2 pillars and a long road winding into the distance toward those blue mountains. And that indicates that if the debt were to go away, the gates of possibility would be wide open, and we would be foolish to collapse into confusion and fear instead of striding forward on that long road toward a heaven on earth, also known as a new and better world made to order by us. The crayfish climbing out of the water symbolizes long-standing, even ancient ideas and feelings and social customs that we might have to let go of in order to seize the opportunities at hand. The dog and the wolf barking at the moon represent our animal instinct to fear what is new and unknown, and the need to rise above those fears if we want to avoid being swept away by ancient fears and warlike habits. They keep pushing war. Don't fall for it. Such strong, blunt messages from the moon are a wake-up call to the fact that we are at a crossroads. Its number, the moon is the number 18, signals that the debt is only sustainable for another 18 days or 18 weeks. Wow. 18 days or 18 weeks could maybe be 18 months, which is a year and a half, but that's pretty close. Each person must awaken to the dangers and opportunities that lie ahead, and then choose his or her path carefully. One path might be to, I'm just going to ignore the warning from the moon. And you could tell yourself that debt situation could not possibly change or collapse that soon because you just can't imagine such a thing happening. Another wiser path might be to prepare to be responsible, productive, self-sustaining, and as practical as possible. It might mean setting up a life to walk for a while with one leg in the modern electric world of carefree convenience and the other leg in a world that is closer to the earth and not as dependent on money and electric conveniences. A third path might be that some solution or big change is coming that is being deliberately hidden for the time being because it's not finished being set up yet. The frown on the moon hints that it might not be a positive change, but it's more likely that people may perceive it as a perplexing, confusing, somewhat challenging change. This brings us to the second part of the question regarding what Americans most need to do to survive if the debt system suddenly changes or collapses, and how soon that would happen. And the Two of Cups carries a very simple message. It says that a change or collapse is even closer. like coming within the next 2 weeks or 2 months. And we will have to deal with some mighty emotions that release huge waves of energy. So hopefully some of that energy will be waves of excitement, possibility, creativity, and a deep, like, binding awareness of what we have all been through together. Cups are the holders of feelings, longings, and beliefs. And cups advise us to let things flow naturally. Just flow with them and learn. Keeping this awareness of a natural flow would allow us to continue moving forward without fragmenting. The Two of Cups tells us that dealing successfully with strong emotions is the task that we encounter every lifetime. And we must tackle it with fresh energy time after time, every lifetime. This is important because feelings and needs are the deciding factor in every situation that works out well over the long run. It is when feelings and needs are ignored and we realize that something just doesn't feel right, that we return to the table to make new agreements again and again. The female figure in blue and white is wearing the feminine colors of the high priestess. And this symbolizes the need to use the female's great power to sort out and put a name to needs, feelings, and intuitions. These are critical contributions to handling any kind of chaos caused by a debt collapse or sudden drastic change in the financial system. The male figure in black and yellow is wearing the masculine colors of the Fool. And this symbolizes the need to remain calm, open, and without preconceived ideas in the face of what feels like, a situation where you have no experience and you feel kind of threatened. So black is the color of the creative void. No preconceived ideas, going to create something that's appropriate for this time. So the task of male energies is to hold vital strength and a willingness to forge new agreements while maintaining connections that result in successful relationships and taking care of fundamental interests and needs for all. Together, the two figures represent the essence of what we would most need to do to survive a debt collapse or a major change in the financial system. We all grew up with that system and we assumed it would always be there. But the Two of Cups tells us that the best solutions and the longest lasting successes come when everyone feels heard and taken care of. We must learn to honor the fundamental interests and needs of everyone in every country. Putting the Moon card together with the Two of Cups tells us that there are hidden factors and forces working on our debt problem. And there's nothing we can do other than prepare to respond intelligently and be more responsible for ourselves. As for how that would look if we wanted to survive, well, I think it would look like doing something deep and honest in terms of thinking about how you would handle such a big change. So there was no panic if the worst occurred. We would then come together to intuitively identify feelings and needs of everyone while remaining calm, open, and ready to move into the future without preconceived ideas that often come from the past. You can't implement old ideas in a new time. So the goal would be to maintain connections and relationships while setting up all new pathways to successful living. Keywords for the Moon are deception, darkness, danger, terror, hidden enemies, instability, silence, uncertainty, not enough light to see the whole truth, inebriation, falsity, lying, error, insufficient information, arrogance, and greed. And then for handling that, the keywords for the Two of Cups are dialogue, crossroads, decision point, feelings, support, cooperation, gentleness, love, relationship issues, a balance of needs and wants, imagination, healing, temperance, empathy, emotions, and intuition. Wow. Question number 3. What does the animal kingdom have to say about Three-Eye Atlas and our ability to face the truth of a changing world? Ooh. When I drew the swan card, I had a moment of feeling all choked up because this is such a very ancient symbol of awakening to true beauty and power of the self, both of which are needed to walk through the doorway, through that garden gate to other worlds of possibility and planes of existence. Beauty is something our world could use right now, but that can only come to be through the power of an awakened population that deliberately chooses beauty in everything they do. And part of the message of Swan is that Three-Eye Atlas is involved in awakening us to beauty and the power of self. So what will we awaken to? Well, the most obvious possibility is an awakening to the fact that we are not alone in the universe. Duh. The second possibility is that if it is one of the big motherships, if Three-Eye Atlas is one of those big motherships that are often built to disguise themselves to look like an asteroid or something natural, there could be communication of some kind that would change everything and likely freak out a few people. And in fact, there are lots of rumors that this is exactly what is happening. A third possibility is that we might foolishly try to intercept or attack the ship, but the swan card indicates something else altogether. Anyone who has ever read the story of the ugly duckling understands that this story represents complete transformation from difficulty and trauma to beauty, trust, and grace. The story involves a lack of knowledge about the self and perceptions of life based on an immature stage of development. The duckling, that's us, endures mistreatment, sort of like unequal treatment under the law, endures misunderstanding, doesn't understand because of constant exposure to propaganda narratives, puts up with abuse, sort of like the abuse that started in 2020 with something in the arm. And he's left out to die, left out in the cold. Our voice is not heard or responded to by the government. We're left out of everything. So the duckling suffers terribly because he does not understand that he is not what he believes himself to be, and he does not understand his destiny. Only in the midst of a dark, cold winter, which is kind of akin to the dark night of the soul, does he surrender to his fate, thinking he will die, but then emerges in the spring as a creature of stunning beauty, truth, trust, and grace. Is this going to be the effect of Three-Eye Atlas on the people of Earth? Does Three-Eye Atlas offer us an opportunity to take a good, hard look at ourselves and change our perception of what we are, who we are, and what we are destined to become? Do we finally awaken to the fact that all of our basic assumptions about life are based on immature ideas, fearful perceptions, and resentment over having to grow up and take responsibility? The appearance of the swan represents entry into a time of deeply altered awareness. Swan warns us that the alteration in awareness comes from two sources: a combination of external forces in the environment and a sudden entry into the dream time, a place where one learns vision and sees destiny. The swan represents surrender to the rhythm of the universe and trust that we have a destiny. Swan teaches that a greater force than we know is unfolding within us, and we are not done growing up. It urges development of intuitive abilities and acceptance of what we know is coming. Of course, many people fear that slavery and subjugation are coming, but Swan says, no, it is total transformation that is coming. It tells us, relax, go with the flow, and accept the healing and transformation offered by Three-Eye Atlas and life itself. This doesn't mean lying down to be a doormat. It means being grounded in reality, speaking truth, and paying attention to the subtle cues and information brought by the body. The body is your tool. Swan teaches that there will be a major shift from left brain linear perception to right brain holistic perception, because we are evolving spiritually. And the development of spirituality is the development of whole brain function, along with all new meanings in life. The advice of Swan is stop denying what we are, what we know, and stop manufacturing fears as if we have no power and no say in matters that concern us. It advises that we stay grounded, get back in touch with Earth, and avoid wandering in the world of illusions, because it is time to be real. Wow. Question number 4. What advice does the plant kingdom have for us this month? Which completely backed up the swan. The card drawn here was hibiscus, a plant used since the days of the Egyptians to treat heart and nerve diseases, remedy gastrointestinal upsets, help with constipation. So if we could take those qualities and apply them to our world, we could say that hibiscus helps open hearts, gives us nerve and courage to stand in our truth, helps heal what we can no longer stomach, and it gets things moving in the right direction by releasing old crap that has become an obstacle to the free flow of energy through the world. Hibiscus is a large, showy, red flower of great beauty. It attracts many hummingbirds, and together, hibiscus and hummingbirds are symbols of beauty, joy, and coming together as a people. The core message of hibiscus actually comes from the goddess Kali, the goddess of death, time, and change. So her message is that we must understand and accept divine timing and change. All things change. And if you refuse to evolve and change with your time, you will restrict yourself and your usefulness to a very small window of time, and then you'll go down to death when that time is over. Those who learn to flex and change can begin to approach their eternity, possibly living long enough to leave a beautiful legacy, a legacy of truth, beauty, and abundance. Hibiscus is also associated with Lord Ganesha, another Indian deity who used hibiscus to reach divine consciousness. This consciousness was necessary for those who were in places of power, so they would make decisions that were wise. As we move into our power, we must use our divine consciousness to navigate the road ahead. Hibiscus, the flower itself, was considered to be the symbol of the 5 main races of humans on planet Earth. And it was a reminder that we're all here together and we are responsible for maintaining the delicate channels of communication between and among ourselves, channels of communication that bring peace and security. Hibiscus is ruled by Venus and Pluto. Oh, an exacting pair. Wow. Venus brings youth, beauty, and the feminine side of life. But youth has to be willing to learn. Okay, beauty changes over time. Womanhood was highlighted as necessary for grace, beauty, creativity, and harmony. And the world suffered without the voices of women and the power they held. So that's coming back. Pluto was the aspect that brought examination of systems and institutions, followed by death and change that marked times of correction and healing. So death and change is really correction and healing. Hibiscus reminds us that we hold and cradle life and must consciously bring beauty, joy, and creativity to the work of living. And it is work. Hibiscus says that whatever pain we have been having is coming to an end. And making this happen relies on our willingness to embrace our power. Don't shy away from it. After all, we are creatures of sensuality, joy, creativity, and abundance. So why settle for anything else? And that's it for this tarot. Let's sum up what we've said. Question number 1 was, the people of the Western countries are floundering badly in many areas. What has happened to the spirit of the people, and how do we restore it? And the cards drawn here were the Devil and the Ace of Pentacles, bringing a powerful message about what has happened to the spirit of the people. The spirit we hold is the source of energy that we use to run our lives. So when we become dispirited, depressed, angry, or fearful, life becomes difficult, even miserable. The Devil card indicates that we have been surrounded and saturated with life-destroying ideas and habits characteristic of Satan. It's irrelevant whether we call it Satanism or not, blame it on the devil or not, blame it on Russia, Israel, Iran, China, whatever, whoever. What is relevant is that once you recognize the loss of spirit, it's time to redress the problem. The Devil card says it's time to recover our spirit and save our civilization. This is backed up by the Ace of Pentacles. The Ace tells us it's our fate to face this issue. And we have to make a choice and then use our gifts and talents to make major changes. Satanism is not so much something that has been done to us as much as it's something that we've allowed to infiltrate our world. And it's dragged all of us off track. These cards represent a chance to turn something around, turn everything around. But they tell us that we have to be willing to do the work. The resulting world will be a gift to ourselves. I like that idea. Question number 2 was, how long can we sustain our $37 trillion debt? When will this change? And what is the one thing people most need to do to survive when this happens? And again, 2 cards were drawn. The first being the Moon card, representing something hidden going on that we cannot see yet. The Moon is blunt in saying, you've been spending money like drunken sailors, indulging in naive and foolish behavior. This has created an unsustainable situation. And the Moon warns, there's really nothing we can do because we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Hidden activity is going on that could be good or bad, and we are advised to prepare ourselves and then go about our business while keeping an eye on what is unfolding. When the change comes, we are to deal with it in a rational manner, using the advice from the Two of Cups. This card indicates that within the next 2 weeks or 2 months, possibly the next 18 days or 18 weeks, we will see the system change. And this will generate huge waves of emotion in the population. To navigate these emotions, we are to remain calm and make sure everyone is taken care of while setting up new paths to successful living. Question number 3 was, what does the animal kingdom have to say about Three-Eye Atlas and our ability to face the truth of a changing world? And wow, we got the Swan. A swan is a card of beauty, truth, grace, and total transformation. It's a card that represents entry into a time of deeply altered awareness that arises from changes in the natural environment, Mother Earth, and a sudden, even unexpected entry into the dream time, where we learn about ourselves and our destiny. The swan is an ancient symbol of emerging from dark, difficult times where we are not certain we can survive, to a life of stunning presence, long life, and powerful relationships. Swan's message is to surrender to the rhythm of the universe and trust that a greater force than we know is unfolding within us. And the result will be total transformation. So much for Three-Eye Atlas. And last question, number 4, what advice does the plant kingdom have for us this month? And the card drawn was hibiscus. Hibiscus is a card or flower known for its beauty, its ability to open hearts, bring strength, nerve, and courage, and help heal what can no longer be tolerated. Hibiscus is closely associated with the goddess Kali, the goddess of death, time, and change. Lord Ganesha is also associated with hibiscus, and he brings the chance to reach divine consciousness. When beauty cannot be seen, when hearts are closed, when desperation has spread across the land, it's time for a change. And it is well understood by the ancient gods that sometimes a big change is needed. And Kali was always the one who brought the destruction where it was needed, thus restoring beauty, health, balance, and the energy of creativity. Lord Ganesha brought an awakening of consciousness that held inspiration, wisdom, and vision. Hibiscus is a card that says pain and sorrow are coming to an end, and making this happen will depend on our willingness to embrace truth and our power. So thanks so much for listening, and make it a good month. It promises to be very interesting. 2 weeks, 18 days. And have a warm and wonderful Christmas. I'll see you in the new year. Take care.